Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Nivarti Jairam, and welcome to today's live session. And we have a great panel with us to start the day or the session that we are going to run. So, this session is sponsored by Digital Agility Institute, and we will start with a quick intro of the institute itself. So we are running a community learning program on through Digital Agility Institute that's about equipping Scrum Masters to be able to drive and influence and inspire organizations to successfully transform and sustain the transformation that they are going through. And we have a great coach here as well who is working with us very closely on the program. Let me introduce the first panelist, that is Hari. Hi, Hari. Hari has been a great friend, and we've been together for quite a while now. Hari is working with ABB, and he's leading the transformation there, and he's also a product coach. And he comes with the extensive experience of driving transformation programs. Hari, if you can just share your experience so far being on the expert Scrum Master program that we are running.
One thing I would say, it is one of the most unique programs that I have seen and been part of, and I'm glad that I'm part of it as a participant as well as mentor. And it's an amazing journey for the last couple of weeks. Quite a bit of learning and quite a bit of sharing of experience, and I'm thankful for Nivarti and the rest of my fellow participants to build this program and drive this together.
Great. And continuing with the panelist introductions, we have Amit Butel.
Hi all.
Hello, Amit. Thanks for
Hi.
joining us. Amit is coming from CGI. Again, almost 2 decades of experience in IT and leading a lot of transformation programs within CGI as well. So, Amit, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, so I have also a part of the Agile and DevOps coach in CGI. Have been uh, working closely with the clients on their transformation journey from a traditional delivery model to a more collaborative Agile and DevOps, and have been associated with digital agility with Nivriti, Akhil, and sharing the best practices to the industry and taking those to my workplace. I'm also an safe practitioner, a safe program consultant, and a safe lean portfolio, and a certified risk manager. So, sharing my views on the DevOps transformation in this panel.
Thanks, Amit. And then we have Aditya. Aditya comes from Accenture, and he is a certified DevOps architect and coach with almost more than 2 decades of experience in the industry. And he is also quite extensively involved in business IT alignment of DevOps transformations. And it's interesting that his other area of interest are artificial intelligence and advanced analytics in DevOps adoption. Advanced analytics in DevOps adoption, I think that's something we will dig deeper into today as well. And it would be interesting to hear what you have to say about the analytics we are looking at as well, Aditya. So, welcome to the panel.
Sure, sure. Thank you.
And
Happy to be
last
here.
but not the least, we have Akhilesh Chaturvedi. He is the founder and CEO of Yayati Consulting, and I've known Akhil for 6, 7 years now, and he's also my coach. We work very closely together. And Akhil also is not one of, he is the author of the DevOps Coach program, which is now being run by DASA. And Akhil, you have trained close to 300 people so far, 300 plus?
Yeah, across globe we have 300 plus. Yeah.
Yeah, across the globe. So again, glad to have you, Akhil, on the panel. Okay, so the topic today we have is about the state of DevOps. So the first question that we are trying to address, I think it goes for everyone. So what is your definition of DevOps? Because when I look at the Google and search for definition of DevOps, so far I have seen more than 50 definitions of DevOps. So it would be very interesting to hear from each of you. How do you define DevOps? What is DevOps for you? Maybe we'll start with Akhil, you first.
Thanks, Nivati. Many times when you start our program, we ask, what is DevOps for you? And we get various definitions. And while working and designing the different programs in the DevOps space, specifically the DevOps Coach program, and now we are developing a very long program for DevOps team coaching, what we came out with, it is a customer-centric and humanistic approach to developing IT products and services, aimed primarily at rapid flow of change within the IT ecosystems. And that has the two parts. One, when we are developing a customer-centric humanistic approach of developing the IT products and services, and we are trying to create the flow, that means you have to overcome frictions and siloing of any kind. It could be between the two human beings, between the two people in the team, within the group, or intergroup frictions, or siloing between the different groups, or maybe the siloing of the informations and various other things. And the second part of any DevOps definition is delivering engineering. How do you deliver your products to generate the rapid value to stakeholders and to your clients? I'm not saying customers, we're talking about the clients. So every individual of your organization becomes the client. So that's the definition. Last 8 to 9 years working in this space is what I feel the DevOps is all about.
Okay, and Amit, what is your view? You agree or you have something to add to what Akhil already mentioned?
Yeah, as Akhil mentioned, there are multiple definitions of DevOps if we really do Google. According to my perception and what we have really put it across is the DevOps, how we can have a deep user empathy with the client-centric approach with the continuous feedback loops. The feedback which is really coming up from the client to the IT and then going back from the IT to the client, how we can have the shorter feedback and with the deep user empathy. The second aspect is the continuous flow of the information from each and every member from the whole team, as the team when they are working, how we are breaking those silos, how we are having the information which is continuously flowing. The third aspect which I always see as a building block is the challenge the assumptions. Always challenge the status quo so that we are continuously improve collaboratively and evolve experimentally. So DevOps is more of the experimentation culture which we have brought in, and that is the key thing which has taken us on this journey. And as Akhil was also saying, is the transparency and the team synergy, how we are bringing the synergy between all the stakeholders, whether it is a client stakeholder, shareholders, or members, or various departments, how they can come together and can build the whole ecosystem. That is the whole what I think is the definition of DevOps according to me.
Okay, again, there is customer centricity, there is silos that you remove. So majorly, I think you both talked about that. Now,
Yeah.
moving on to Aditya, what is your view or what is your definition?
Well, for me, DevOps is everything you need to do to deliver high quality software faster to business without compromising our security, reliability, and other entities, right? Because when the DevOps movement started, there's been a lot of focus on time to market. And I mean, it's quite, very understandable. I don't know, being a programmer in early 2000s, this was a constant friction between business and IT, right? We could never respond. Minimum 3 months, even for a small, HTML change. So from there, that's why there's a lot of focus. So Agile solved this problem to some extent, but because now Agile started, delivering in small chunks, but faster, the frequency increased, it caused other problems. And that's why, if you really, trace the history of DevOps first introduction was in an Agile conference, as you know, I think it was called an infrastructure for the Agile or Agile administration, right? And then it evolved into DevOps. So it is, and then there have been a lot of other conversations in terms of whether testing, how does the testing integrate, and then when you see these frictions, I think the key point was between development and operations, right? So that is what was delaying, the delivery of software to business faster, among many other things. So that is why where the name came in. But I think it kind of encompasses, as I said, everything that you need to do, because you really cannot do, the DevOps in its true sense without having good test automation. So there are a lot of elements to it. We can explore that later. But I think for me, as I said, everything you need to do to deliver it faster with high quality without compromising security and other entities.
Okay. And before we head to you, Hari, for your comments, for all those who are watching us live, please say hi and let us know where you are joining from. And please do post your questions if you have any for the panelists, and we'll try and take them and see what their views are on those questions. So, Hari, what is your definition of DevOps?
Yeah, there are beautiful definitions already that is stated by all of you. I just have to add, from my experience, a few things that is a very simple definition. I would call it as DevOps as a foundation for business agility. When I say if it is not there, you can't build, an agile organization. Number one. Number two, and this is I take it from our ESM program, establishing Scrum Master program. And the other day, one of the mentor, Sanjay Gupta, was mentioning it is like two, the wheels of this bicycle, Agile and DevOps. That is my experience as well, because you cannot separate, Agile from DevOps. It is part of the cycle. There are two wheels. And as we go together in this journey of transformation of organizations, we need to have both the wheels working. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So that's my experience and definition of DevOps.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll just spend a bit of time on what actually the report talks about from a summary perspective, and please feel free to add your comments as well on that particular element if you have to look at that. So when I look at the report itself, the one of the things that comes up is that DevOps is not automation, right? So, which essentially means there are a lot of people still in the industry who probably feel automating everything you can is what DevOps is all about, right? Probably that is not a right way to look at. Yes, that is also part of DevOps, but that is not only that is not DevOps. So that is something the report talks about. The second element is, again, DevOps is not the cloud. And we see that as well as in certain industries or certain organizations, that okay, if your applications that you are driving within the organizations are on cloud, then you think you are already DevOps, right? Probably that also is a myth. It is essential It's a significant contributor to organization being DevOps, but just being on cloud is essentially not a DevOps. And it also talks about team identities and clear interaction paradigms matter, which means, again, it's all about people, right? So whether it is Agile or DevOps, and like Hari, you were saying that, okay, they are kind of two wheels in a bicycle, but in the end, it's all about people, how people collaborate in an organization, and how empowered they are, or enabled or equipped they are. Probably empowered is not the right word to use, so we can say how equipped they are, how enabled they are, in terms of making decisions, in terms of uh, being involved in the organizational vision and objective setting, is what can really differentiate organizations from being DevOps or not being DevOps. The fourth essential element, again, cultural blockers are keeping mid evolution firms stuck in the middle. This again is I'm not sure, and we'll explore this quite a bit in our discussion as well. Probably it's wrong to look at culture in isolation. It is an integral part of transformation itself, and we have some questions to explore that. But if you look at culture in isolation, then I think you are again heading for some sort of a problematic area from my point of view. We'll explore that as well. And last but not the least, platform teams are key to success at scale. And we are seeing that, right? If you are looking to scale DevOps at an enterprise level, how you can create platforms and services within the platforms, and differentiate application teams from platform teams, and how that eases the ability to deliver faster, as Aditya was mentioning. So this is the executive summary from the report. I just thought to highlight anything anyone wants to add to that summary that's being shown. Any points anyone wants to bring up on those elements?
Nivarti, just display that summary if you can. And you rightly said so. The cultural blockers. And wherever we are helping organizations across the globe, and I'm part of one of the largest insurer company in North America, and they have heard somebody saying that the culture is going to help get into the transformation journey. Well, culture happens. Just start doing it, making things happen, right? Make as Aditya and others are also talking about that. How do you reduce the frictions between the different teams? What is that you do so that they can start feeling connected with each other and supporting each other? And that's the bigger thing that we need to look at. The culture will happen if you start working the culture. Then I don't think we are going to go to our north. We'll be probably moving away from the what exactly we are supposed to do. So that's absolutely clear. We will focus on the culture. Just create the definitions what exactly the culture would look like, but don't start working onto that. Start doing some actions, create some flow, reduce some frictions, right? Reduce some silos, as we are all talking about.
Wonderful. I think there is specific segment that we especially have on the culture. So it would be interesting to hear the comments that you all have towards that particular aspect of culture. So again, continuing with the questions, Amit, this one is for you, right? The report talks about essentially key metrics that is focused in the report is one, the lead time for changes or the deployment frequency, the mean time to recover, and also change failure rate. These are some of the key metrics, right? But how do you look at in your organization or the clients you are servicing, what are the metrics that you essentially focus on?
Okay. Good one, Nivriti. I also agree with the metrics which you have displayed on the screen and which is on the report. Apart from these metrics, which we are also having measuring for our clients for our transformation journey. Few of the metrics which I have taken and really put it across is the percentage of the failed deployments. How important it is that when we are deploying the software, as Aditya was saying, it should be a smooth flow of information without any hiccups, and it directly goes into the production cycle, and it is visible to all the users. So that is one critical metrics which we are putting it across. Then another aspect is the performance, the performance of the software applications, the software which we are building across, the performance when we are releasing these small enhancements or user stories into the production cycle, how the performance is there any degradation in the performance, or it should be the same performance to all the users across all the geographies on which we are building the applications. The third aspect which we are really putting it is the lead time, the cycle time of from the ideation phase, from the idea when the whole aspect of the idea comes into the business to the idea which is done in the deployment. How we are measuring it, how fast we are really putting it across, that is the key thing over here. So what in the aspect, in the summary, what I will say is it is the quality metrics, which is the failure rates, which is very critical. Then the faster time, how we are really moving the flow of the information, breaking the silos, and having those the features and the user stories going to the production to the end users really fast, which can make a difference to the business as a whole.
Great. And another question probably related to this I have is probably these metrics, and probably Hari, you can help me here. These metrics do look more operational, right? So when you look at measuring the business value that we generate, which we should ideally focus on. So from your point of view, what metrics you focus in the organization, looking at it from a business perspective, right?
Yeah, there are. See, anything for us, it's a product organization. So fundamentally, there are three aspects of investment that we make. One is to penetrate to the existing customers, and one is to expand to the new markets, new areas of the business, and and sometimes you need to expand. Um, um, Now you really need to look in these aspects and see how much of at the portfolio level, how do I look into where we need to invest and where we are getting more revenue. So essentially it has to be tied back to the revenues that we are as an organization that we are getting from whatever that we are doing. So it's one part of the portfolio metrics that we are looking into that is really helping us to realignment our investments. And especially in the pandemic situation, it is actually going through a sea change, the way that we are actually looking into this business metrics. So more than operational metrics, we also need to have this business metrics. So these are some of the stuff that we do, but it is not limited to that. There is also human part of the metrics, which is little difficult to measure, but we must have a starting point for that also, to really look into how the transformation, how this is, the softer aspects of transmission also need to be measured.
Okay, great. And as we go through, yeah, Akhil.
Nivarti, if I may add, since Hari mentioned about the human side of it, and when we were looking at that, of course, as you rightly said, it is all engineering part of the matrix which has been mentioned. And when we were talking about our definitions, we said that the human side of it, human-centric approach to doing that. What we found, and that all that can be bundled as an engagement matrix. So how do you create the engagement with the teams, within the teams, and the group, which is creating the flow? So the first matrix is that how diverse your team is. Diversity of the team is important. The second is that, and we'll talk about going forward, the cognitive load. So how are you making sure that the work life is integrated so that the cognitive load is reduced? And when people are working, they're looking for the mastery of a particular things, and therefore the happiness index go on. So are we measuring that the mastery, how much they have learned and what is that mastery they have developed across the value stream? And when you look at, we need to start looking at the value will come. It's the outcome of how we team and how do we start building the trust across the ecosystems. So these are the 5 to 6 engagement metrics that we have measured, and we found that successful organizations, high-full organizations, are able to do much better.
Yeah, and also, yeah, Amit, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So as Akhil has already put the happiness index, in the pandemic, what we have also started is the wellness index for the team. How connected or the atmosphere at the home, because they are all started working from the whole, how well they are with the connected with not only with the business but with the family members, with all the environment which they are embracing, and how we can build that relationship with the clients. Now everyone is just dispersed in everything, so how they can build that a personal connect with their clients, with their counterparts, so that all the information which gets connected. Happiness index was also there, but we have put one more aspect, which is the wellness index, into this whole human centric approach, which has really worked quite well in our engagements.
Oh, great. Yeah, Aditya, you wanted to add something, and
Yeah,
probably, yeah,
I'll just take quickly. So see, specific to these 4 metrics, right? I think these 4 metrics were initially they came out in 2018 report, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
That it's and in a way, at least I'm noticing that it's kind of becoming a standard across the in every DevOps conversation, right? And it's a positive thing, because I've also struggled with what are the right metrics. The second part to the what you said, see, there were like hundreds of metrics. I remember, there were metrics like how many check-ins were done, right, post DevOps adoption, right? Obviously number would increase. The point is, what are the right metrics for me, that made relevance across the levels, right, from operations management right up to, say, senior leadership and business. And that is where there seems to be a consensus around these 4 metrics. But having said that, what I heard about, culture, happiness, wellness, these are also important. So probably we are in that, still in that conversation as, as industry, and DevOps SMEs. But so the key point is these 4 are kind of becoming, standard, but we still need few more. For example, one that often gets tagged is, I think Hari mentioned it, revenue and cost, right? So that is another aspect, whether we like it or not, that always comes in the conversation. So we have to measure it. And then, some kind of tagging of, business outcomes with the IT matrices that we measure on the ground. So these are the, 3 or 4 additional elements that we need to consider along with these 4, that the report mentions.
yeah. Great. And since you're already speaking, Aditya, probably I'll take the next question with you. What do you see as the blockers? Because when we look at the report as well, they talk about team dynamics as one of the blockers. Then organizational silos also as one, and culture, of course, that's one of the major blockers that is in focus. What are the major blockers that you have experienced when you are either servicing the client or within your organization itself?
So, all the things that the report mentions, I think it's bang on, right? So culture is, the key thing that comes out as a blocker, and also is a difficult thing to work with and resolve. And then the mention of legacy, right? And that is also an important, and I think we have a separate section on that, and we will discuss more. Is another aspect. And then, the another question that comes up is based on the technology stack, all the best practices tools, etc., that are there in the market that is associated with DevOps. Not all of them would work, right? Depending on the technology stack you have. So all that is mentioned, and in order, the legacy, culture, legacy, and what I would call as enterprise DevOps, right? So to do the DevOps for one application in a startup where there are maybe 20 people, where the same group of people are developing something, putting it in production, testing it, to large enterprises we have a complex application stack. There is legacy, multiple teams, multiple vendor ecosystems. So how do we do that, right? So it's not easy. So those are the vendor and tool fragmented enterprise systems, culture, legacy. These are the things that I would say are the key impediments or the blockers that I'm seeing.
Okay, and Akhil, look, focusing on the team aspect, right? The team dynamics and how teams are formed, the topologies that are also in focus. So, what is your view when you look at different topologies that are available for organizations to use? What do you think is more fruitful as a topology for organizations to adopt? And what are the pros and cons that you see?
You asked me this question, Nivarti, or
Yeah.
so the adoption of different topologies depends. It's a contextual, and it is contextual as we talked about the definitions of the DevOps. That what topology is going to be fruitful at that point of time to create the value, create the flow, and create the quality. And when you talked about the flow, as Aditya was talking about, how are you going to create the ROI, how are you going to create the value out of the ecosystems for the stakeholder as well as for the clients. Now, the second considerations when you are looking at the team topologies is that all these four metrics which we talked about, and also the engagement matrix. So are we going to create these four metrics which you talk about: deployment frequency, lead time for change, MTTR, and change failure rate, plus the topologies which is creating the learning for the people, it is creating the mastery for the people, and really they are enjoying. The second aspect of that, when you are creating the topologies, comes out that innovations and the collaboration. So these topologies, when we are putting together, it generates the new next level of the ideas. It's innovate in the delivery process, it innovates in the product process, product development process as well. And now, when we are working on how are you going to create the knowledge for reducing the complexities and making sure that the things comes out and we can deal with the right kind of complexities now. So we have developed the knowledge to deal with the complexities which we have. The another point which comes is the when you have created the topologies, it should be reducing the cognitive load. That means matching the team responsibilities to what is that capabilities they have, what kind of the talent which we have, that should also match. You can't create a topologies which is not matching the load which they can take at the moment. So what are the complexities? And we are creating the flow. That means it should have the end-to-end experiences. You cannot create the experience. So topology should create the experiences, aha moment, not only for your end customers or the clients which you have talked about, but the aha moment for every single individual involved into the process of developing the software. Enjoyment of that sort. And that I take it from the Seattle, there is a fish, there is a story which I had, and then talking to the Toyota guys and some of the places in Bangalore, we find that they create the enjoyment for the people they are working. They have put together the right kind of coaches as well. So there are defined topologies, but the topologies which is not creating end-to-end experience is not going to work. Yeah. So that's the whole idea of that. Now we can go into the different kind of topologies and why exactly this is. Probably we'll talk about the what are the NT patterns, and there we can talk about that what are the NT patterns that we have, and therefore that becomes a pros and cons for us to take it forward.
Yeah, great. Again, thanks for that, Akhil. And moving further, a lot of organizations are able to implement DevOps at a team level or at a product level. But when you want to scale DevOps to an organization level, uh, you know, I think we still are looking at some frameworks or some models that can help us scale DevOps up to an enterprise level, right? To really call an organization as a DevOps organization. So maybe Hari, you can talk us through. Are you scaling DevOps in your organization? And if yes, how are you doing it? What is the model that you are adopting? In order to scale DevOps to an enterprise level.
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, Nivarti, thanks for the question. That it is the Agile and DevOps as part of two wheels of the bicycle. From that analogy, from my what we are doing as part of my organization is that we are using SAFe as a framework of scaling agility in the organization, and as part of that, we are actually doing the DevOps transformation as well. And um, be it establishing a shared services team and integrating the DevOps function into the development streams, having accountability built within the streams to have that as a function to drive initiatives, while helping them with frameworks and models and guidance and coaching. From the shared services team is something that we have established from the beginning. A lot of work, in fact, is all about integration of tools, harmonization of the tools that is in the ecosystem, for end-to-end value delivery. When I say end-to-end value delivery, we need to really have this value stream mapped for the organization, for the different portfolio of products, so that we can actually put in the right amount of tooling that is needed to visualize and automate the end-to-end lead time for delivering value to the customer. Now, from that perspective, we use SAFe and we use DevOps as part of the parallel journey or together journey with SAFe for the transformation. So this is all going together. It's different aspects going together. It's about transforming the product portfolio management, transforming the functions around the product development, which involves multiple functions, bringing them to Kanban, so that we can, because they don't understand technology. I mean, what we apply to the technology team cannot be applied to functions, which is, say, for example, I'm talking about export control function, and I'm talking about training function who actually prepares webinars for our products to be launched to market, or Marcom function, marketing and communication function, who actually have a lot of they build the events that actually goes into sell the products, or not even selling. It's sales is different, marketing, strategic marketing is different. All those functions has to be brought into your ecosystem, brought to the teams. Every week we have to have this Kanban. On the Kanban, we discuss on what is really needed to collaborate and work together for launching the product to the market faster. And from that, we actually get a lot of small initiative that can be supported with the shared DevOps function, who can actually help them to automate their specific needs. And it's not been so complicated. Simple Kanban will work with most of these functions, in addition to having more DevOps tooling for the product development and R&D setup. That's my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, Amit, before we get to you, right, because Hari touched upon an interesting topic of, using Agile and DevOps transformations more in an integrated fashion. And I just wanted to highlight, because that is one of the elements that me and Akhil are trying to cover in our upcoming book, which is titled Digital Agility. And how we are actually trying to see how we integrate or use enterprise agility as a platform or as a vehicle for integrating all the different transformation initiatives, which under the digital transformation umbrella. So it's an interesting concept that we are working on. I just thought we should touch upon that because that is something which is again very close to our hearts, and we are working closely on that topic as well. And that's where digital agility came into picture from our point of view. Yeah, Amit, please. What is that you wanted to add there?
I would just want to add, I think Hari has, Nivriti, both of you have added the good points on the Agile and DevOps collaboration and the synergy. Another thing which from the business perspective, when we are scaling, it is very important that we break the silos between various functions like HR, we have your trainings, we have procurement, we have sales, all these, how these all together can come together and have an enterprise agility and enterprise DevOps, and the flow of the information where each and every, the software also works, and also these functions also works in harmonizations with the software. So that is the key thing which we have taken at the enterprise level when we are scaling, removing not only these silos from the software development perspective, but from the business perspective, and taken the DevOps as an engine to really achieve the enterprise agility. I will say not only business agility, but at enterprise level, how this all the business functions can come together. That is the thing which I would like to brought in.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Amit, for that. And that also brings us to another point, right? So we now have DevOps transformation happening, and a lot of people are also talking about DevSecOps. And again, this is for you, Aditya, and Amit. You can also pitch in here. Uh, how do you see those two, right? The DevOps and the DevSecOps. Do you see them as probably more integrated, or they are complementary, or they're conflicting? How do you see that?
Yeah. So, okay, straight off, absolutely complementary. They go together and they have to, right? The interesting thing is, I myself remember somewhere in 2015 and 16 when I was, doing some, on the same topic, there was so much of contrarian views on, whether security is part of DevOps or whether it is not. You will go see a lot of old posts and debate around this topic, right? I think now this debate is closed from my point of view as an industry, as SMEs and coaches and DevOps architects, practitioners. It is an essential part of DevOps transformation, DevOps enablement, because without that, there is, we really will not be successful. So there's a whole bunch of, how do you integrate, the security tools? What are the best practices? How do you automate, integrate it with CI/CD pipeline, best practices? They all come along with that. So that is one part. I hope, that we all agree that it is part of DevOps. The second is whether I think that gets, there is an interesting discussion in this year's report that we are discussing, and whether you should use the term DevOps or whether you should use the term DevSecOps. There we can happily disagree, choose whichever we prefer, but when it comes to the question of whether security is part of DevOps or not, it absolutely is, right? In various ways, right? In fact, I think in the 2018 report itself, there's a discussion on it. I myself remember, for example, as a release manager, you will take this big checklist right just before the deployment, and then people would start avoiding me because it will delay their, and I even though the checklists are failing, I couldn't enforce them because there was always an exception, right? So the point is, by making security as, this is just one example among many, right? By making security as part of DevOps, we are actually making this kind of manual checks go away, make it automated, make it part of the delivery pipelines, so that it's a win-win for everybody, right? So yeah, in short, yes, it is complementary, and when it comes to whether to call DevOps or DevSecOps, that we can debate.
Yeah, Amit, what about you? What is your thought there?
Yeah, I think I agree with Akhil. In the earlier days, I used to have a security team who used to come and have a huge checklist, do the checking of the security, which was in a different teams, and then there was always a friction between the delivery and the security, whether it is required, not required. But what I see in this whole transformation journey, when we have started with the agile DevOps, and now the security is baked in. Yeah, that's what is the key thing which I would like to say. It is baked in the phases, each and every phase of the software development from the beginning, and the developers themselves are taking the ownership of the security, because that is the critical thing for a system to really work when it goes into the production cycle. And we have seen in the recent reports also, there were various hacking attacks, there were various attacks on the production. So how we can bake that into the developers themselves, and how they can do the security aspect, whether we are calling it a DevOps or a DevSecOps or a SecDevOps. All these terminologies are in the industry, but how exactly we are baking in the security aspects with the tooling infrastructure, with the security knowledge from the beginning, from the ideation stage to the design stage to the development stage and till the production stage. That's what is my aspect.
Yeah, Akhil, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as Aditya said, it is a closed discussion. But what exactly it should be called? It should be called DevSecOps or it should be called DevOps. And I say it should be DevOps, because if the moment you bring the DevSecOps, Sec is the integral part of your DevOps journey. So the moment you are saying DevSecOps, you are bringing the silos. You are thinking that there is a silos which is existing. And if that is the case, that if you wanted to bring, say, DevSecOps, then you should say Dev Quality Op, because the quality became integral part of it. 100% quality given all the time, right? So similarly, we should have that mantra, the security is always given. You cannot take that out. And therefore, that should not be called it out, but it should be just become the bloodstream in our main systems when we are developing it.
Yeah.
And just to highlight, in our own organization, when we were trying to work onto that, the first time when we developed the product, the product owner said, we'll take care of the quality at the end. And I said, no, let's take quality from the beginning. And he did not agree to me. And I said, okay, let's go and fail. And the second time when he come back and says that, what, I learned the lesson and why we got delayed into our release. Why don't we look at the quality at the security from the beginning itself? I said, yeah, that should be the quality and the security are all the time given 100% from the day one. The moment we get into our story points.
Yeah, so that's what I was coming to as well. We started with quality being a separate thing, and then we said build quality in. So why can't we say build security in, and why we want to bring it as DevSecOps, and rather probably Akhil made the right point that when you say DevOps, everything that is part of development falls into that, right? And security is an integral part within the development function as well. Okay, I think that debate will not end on this.
Nivriti, only last point. I think
Yeah.
the baked in, so each and every aspect, whether it is quality, whether it is security, whether it is business, because there was a biz DevOps, sec DevOps, all this has to be baked in the individuals in the business, so they can take it end to end, and we can only call it as DevOps as one term, so that everything gets as one alignment.
Yeah.
So just a point. Only argument that looked convincing for me in the report is when they said you put security anywhere, it is easy to get funding. So that's the reason we lead it.
I was laughing.
That's a good.
Aditya, I'm laughing. There are a number of organizations who have started selling DevSecOps, because then they can sell more of the business of theirs, right? Then we are doing DevSecOps and all of that. So that was a business or outside the marketing term and the business term used to get more business for the organizations, right? But as a practitioners, this is all what we have in the DevOps, which is highly secured, creates the flow with 100% quality. Period. I think that's very valid point, Aditya. You said.
Okay, I think we'll move ahead because that is a lot of passion in that particular topic, and probably we will hear a lot of adverse comment or different diverse views as well on why they are calling it DevSecOps also. But yeah, valid points from everyone there. So moving on to the next topic, and this is a big topic again, and lot of passion would be there around this, and it is about culture, right? And there is a lot of focus, not just as part of agile transformation or DevOps. Any transformation you talk about today, there is a specific kind of focus on the cultural transformation. And it's always interesting to see that, okay, now the focus is specifically put on culture, which is very great. But does culture, or can we transform culture separately, independent of the practices and the ways of working and the mindset we have, is the question, right? So how do you see cultural transformation panning out, right? And how do you think culture can help organizations to continuously evolve? Who wants to take that? Yeah, Aditya, go ahead.
Okay, so as I said, right, I mean, it is the most difficult part of DevOps transformation. Difficult because unlike, so it's very interesting actually, it's Peter Debo himself who said, one of the reasons for so much of focus in DevOps is because you wanted to eliminate the people aspect of it, right? So that you automate it so that there's no, operations and then another 2-3 teams involved and they're fighting over the checklist. But having said that, you can go only so far with automations, even if you have done complete automation in many respects. So culture is the key aspect. In a way, those of, some of us that, who went through, initial days of Agile, and even now, the teams who haven't, who are still an old waterfall type of delivery and who come on board with Agile, it is a huge change, right? Even simple things. And I remember as a developer, the hardest thing for me was to do, say, estimations, right? I always struggled with it as junior programmer, how to do the accurate estimations. And then I learned it, and I think I kind of cracked it. And then when Agile came, it was a totally new ball game, right? How do you do the estimations? It is not number of hours, it's story points. You go with your gut feeling, planning pokers. It was an entirely different way of doing things. So it needs, I think what helped, that change, and I'm just thinking myself as as a mid-level programmer when I went to Agile transformation, is this lot of information available. There was a lot of passion, industry, the conferences, there were others who were part of the journey. And then I think after some time we started seeing the value in it, right? So I think that is the key thing. And then, it is important to identify these right cultural behaviors that are become impediments in the organization, and then start rewarding the the correct behaviors. And that is where the DevOps coach plays a very critical role to identify those patterns and be upfront, and all the the coaching fundamentals, right? How do we be transparent, open to at the right levels, and make sure that the right cultural behaviors get rewarded, right? And how do you put a mechanism around it? The last point, I mean, I don't, unlike other metrics that we see, the culture, unfortunately, I haven't seen a good way to do a quantitative way of measuring it. It is almost impossible. So we have to figure out a good qualitative way to figure out what is the how the culture is. So a lot of it comes from our experience of having done this in many years as delivery managers and having played different roles. But that's why I say there is no one standard, one framework. So I think each of us coaches, actually, I think we are doing it in our own way, but it's the hardest nut to crack. But very interesting part of the whole coaching and transformation experience.
Yeah, before we head to you, Akhil, I think Hari, you also wanted to add something on this one, right?
I think it starts with simple things. The culture is such a big, so-called such a big, thing or monster that we're looking at. It is actually not. It starts with very simple. For one example that we've been doing in our teams, say for example, there is a meeting of say 1 hour. We allocate. It's actually planned only for 55 minutes. The 5 minutes is for quickly retrospect and learn. It could be used as an icebreaker in the beginning, or it could be something that is not connected to the topic or the subject or the business that you're discussing. So that 5 minutes is quality time that you're spending in introducing a new topic for the whole team so that they can share and learn from that 5 minutes. So if you continuously doing that across the organization over a period of time, there is naturally a built-in learning that actually happens. So when you're focusing only on the agenda for the business, you lose focus on the learning aspect. So you need to build in that part. I'm not saying that we should not have this competency mapping, we should not have the skill will metrics, or we should not have this overall strategic, skill mapping and all those things organization level. That must be there, and there has to be a strategic plan for it. On the ground level, when we work with people in teams, that's where culture change happens. And when you are doing this transformation for the teams, we need to have plan for every individual in the organization to take them through this journey of transformation. Now that as you said, that's an experience that we are going to provide. How the sustainability of this transformation depends on how people, as Agil mentioned at the beginning, how they experience this transformation. Did they had pain? Did they enjoy this experience of transformation? That makes the difference. So fundamentally, that's what I would say to this.
Hmm. Great points there. How you build learning in as well. Probably we won't call that dev learn ops later.
Yeah.
Yeah, Akhil.
Yeah, so I think Nivarti and me, both of us are doing something in the DevOps coach program most of the times, right? The culture happens. So in the DevOps world, what is culture is that what are the actions that you need to start doing so that people will start doing the same thing again and again, right? And very interestingly, a long time back, 1970, there is a the person who was working the Gestalt, and he came out with one book called the Learning Organization. And when I was reading the third ways of DevOps, which talks about experimentations and the learning and experimentations, right? So when you have to have a learning and experimentation, that means you have to be learning focused. The culture is about learning. How are you going to learn? So what is that you're going to learn? Content or the process focus? Where is the content? Where is the process? What are you focusing on to? Then how much is the knowledge and how are you reserving those knowledge and using it for the best use of it, right? Then the value chain focus. So how this value is getting created, right? So those are the activities when you start doing that, culture will start building up. It says dissemination focus. So what is that we have learned? Are we able to disseminate across the organization, across the teams? That is very, very important. Now, when you are looking at the actions, are you able to look at the performance gaps across the value chain, across the teams of the teams? What exactly you're looking for? Do we have the concerns for the measurement? This organization, is that a concern for them? I'm not talking about the culture, I'm talking about the concerns for all of these activities, right? Is there a climate for the openness? Can we have the communication? Can we collaborate? Do we have the climate for the openness? And then is there a community for the education? Learning from each versus? Can we build up the highest engagement model for the learning and education? Your organization is going to go into high performance level, right? Do we have a leadership which is involved? Involved leadership. Do you have the leadership which is involved in this particular journey? And the last one, do you have the end-to-end systems perspective, which you talk about systems thinking, right? So if these are the parameters, when we start creating the actions, when we start creating the mindset shift required, the culture will happen. The culture cannot happen just like that. So is the leadership involved? The moment he's involved, there is a culture built from everybody. Everybody will get involved in that. Yeah. So that's my view. And we have seen, and before this conference, I was talking about one of the organizations where we engaged. We found that leadership says that, oh, this is not for me. This is for the rest of the people, right? So they're not involved. You cannot build a culture. So it has to have the top-down approach, top-down views, and the bottom-up development of this culture. Or I don't say culture, I hate to say this word, but actions oriented around these parameters and keep on measuring them time to time.
Yeah, Amit, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, as Akhil has rightly put it in a very concise words, actions. What I would like to add on is the discipline, how we are having a disciplined approach for every action or the principles which we are putting it across to the team, and day in and day out when they come to work, they know that I have to do this thing. They don't have to really go back to their coaches or the mentors, and they, from those actions, from that discipline, this the whole cultural transformation starts, so that it is built in into the whole ecosystem. As Akhil and Hari was also saying that it's really starts from the direction which the leadership is saying to the lowest level, and then when we take these approaches, the whole ecosystem, the ownership which we are building into each and every member, to each and every business holder, the stakeholders, the leadership, and then they come back and take that ownership, take that pride in those actions, and that's the, the the starting point of the whole cultural transformation, and that is the spark which gets along in the whole organizations across the ecosystems, and then the whole uh, chain reaction starts of the cultural transformation. That's what is the whole thing, and what we have taken for all these is the approach of more approach is the Kaizen approach which we have taken in our organization to build the learning aspects, to build the innovation aspects, to build the experimentation aspects, to build the ownership, to from the level of the individual to the leadership and to the business, connecting all the dots together, and how we are transforming the cultural issues from the cultural transformation.
Yeah, great. And also some great points from Balwinder. Thanks for joining, Balwinder, and sharing your views as well. So, continuous delivery happens with continuous learning, bringing organization together in delivering the same. And I think we all agree that probably cultural transformation, to say so, comes top down, right? It's better driven top down, and everything that a team can exhibit depends on how the leadership looks at it and deals with it, right? So if I fail and I want to share my learning with the organization, I should feel safe to do that. It's more looked at as a learning journey rather than as a failure, and you are being targeted. So in the end, how the leadership looks at those behaviors and how the leadership deals and respects those behaviors is something which can drive the organization towards a better set of behaviors that we are looking at, right? And I don't think we can say we have reached the culture of collaboration or culture of competence. It's about continuous evolution. How we as an organization are looking to be better every day and move to the next level. I think that is something we all can focus on, and that is something we can measure to a certain extent. Okay, moving on to the probably penultimate question. I think we are almost over an hour, and Hari, you touched upon this element, right? So, how do we look to sustain, right? So it's and for most organizations or most changes that we see, sustenance is an afterthought. But essentially, I believe you should start with sustenance because it takes time to build sustenance into the system, right? So what is your view? What capabilities do you think an organization needs to build to sustain the transformation in the long run?
First I wanted to touch upon the journey itself. How did we transform to reach this? Will determine whether we are going to sustain it or not. Number one, which means that we have used ADKAR as a framework for really making people move from, say, we formed about 110 Agile teams across 5 different time zones or across the world. Then when we did the transformation, we had plans for every individual teams to do this transformation. So it has to be, a completely comprehensive experience where you are actually taking them through this journey of transformation. And the way that it is actually done will determine how it is sustained for the team. From my experience, that's number one. Number two, it is also many times from my experience, it is a blocker that we need to really transform the middle leadership. Most of the time, the teams are extremely good. The leadership vision is extremely good, but there is a set of intermediate management that need to be transformed to really make the sustenance of the transformation to work, because they hold the connection between the vision of the leadership to the practicality of the team, because there are two different thinking. One is the team's thinking that of delivery of making things happen, and also these people have to bridge between the leadership vision and what team has to deliver. So when you do the focus of the middle leadership transformation, that from my experience, the number one factor that has made an effect in sustaining. So for the Agile transformation that I have, we are in the process of the DevOps transformation journey. It is not that it is fully transformed. I'll give an example. We've been putting the entire 1,000 people organization into quarterly PAs. Every single product, every entire portfolio of products come together for this quarterly program increments. It took almost 1.5 years to get everyone in the whole organization to come into the quarterly program increments. So that's a shift, and the ownership is with the stream leads, and the people who are actually release trained engineers and everyone who's actually holding the space for people to come together and show up, including the business. So, but that is one thing. Of course, the tooling is extremely important from a DevOps perspective. And there are all aspects. We have to look into the tools aspect. We need to look into the people aspects. We need to look into the cultural aspects of how we are going to do the journey. We need to have a framework for doing the transformation. That's my experience. Maybe Akhil, you can add from your experience, and Nivarti as well, because you guys have been having extremely good experience with transformation.
Yeah, Akhil, you want to add something on sustenance before we head to the last question?
Yeah, let's go back to a very simple theory of, I was 99 kilo weight. And you all know when we did the first time, Hari, our DevOps coach program in Bangalore, right? At that point of time, I was 99 kilo. And when I meet you guys next time, I was 82.5. And again, I got back into my 90s at the moment. Okay, I'm in a 91. So what happened? So I had transformed myself, lighter weight, good thing. But what happened for me to come back to this? The whole thing, the sustenance part, is the reward mechanism that we need to build into the organization, right? We do not have the reward. Okay, you have done the transformation. So how are we celebrating that transformation? How are we making sure that we are rewarded, that we have gone to that particular level? Reward happens when you do something different. But reward is not happening that, man, from the last 3 weeks, from the last 3 months, we are able to continuously perform to that level. All these 4 matrices which we have talked about, right? We are not creating it. Second, we do not have the communication channel to every time talk about how we have sustained where we have been. We only communicate what we have done differently or what innovations have happened and what kind of, so there is no communication onto that sort, right? So change is the habit creation. So the moment you have the 3 to 6 months and you continuously repeat that cycle of rewarding, making sure that this is taken, communicated well, and then people start celebrating that sustenance, not creating the high performance and the success of delivering something, will start creating the sustenance. And DevOps has come from the lean organizations, right? The lean world. And when you look at the Toyota, they have at every level, there are coaches. So we have the coaches for the transformation, but we don't have the coaches for the sustenance. right? So you need to have an ecosystems which is managing to keep. And I believe my wife had been a good sustenance coach for me. That still I'm 90. Otherwise, I would have gone back to the 99, right? So I'm just taking that example and coming back to that. Do you have the coaches for the sustainability of what you have got? Have you created the ecosystems to reward people to maintain that particular performance matrix for you? Maintain that particular the behaviors and the mindset shift that has happened. Yeah, and that is what I would look at from the sustainabilities, more from the human side of it.
Yeah, just to add to that as well, I think Hari also and Aditya as well and Amit touched on this point, right? So if you make that transformation journey as an enjoyable experience, right, as a journey that they look up to, then it sustenance becomes more built in, right, into the system, because you are looking forward to that experience every day. If you, even for Akhil's example, just again piggybacking on Akhil, since he brought his example, so if he enjoyed that experience of reducing his weight, the journey that he went through, probably he will sustain that. But when you look at it as a pain, oh god, I have to cut down on this, I have to cut down on that, the moment you feel that there is nobody watching me, or I've hit some good level of milestones that I wanted, you will start going back and looking for that experience which you enjoy more, right? So I think the journey, the experience that you create during the transformation matters a lot in how organizations, or how long organizations can sustain that transformation. And of course, what Akhil mentioned is again very critical, to have that coaches for the run mode, what we call as the BAU mode. And we normally, organizations probably don't plan for that, but we do plan for that as well. So when we transform a tribe or a BU completely, then we start putting one coach for the run mode. And we know that there are scrum masters, but scrum masters are more internal focused. How can the organization consistently look inward and outward? The practices keep evolving outside, right? How organizations, can scrum masters be expected to work with the team dynamics, intra team dynamics, inter team dynamics, and focus on how systems are evolving outside as well? Probably that becomes too much of an expectation on one role. And that is where the coach at a for the run mode can create that kind of an influence and continuous inspiration, by bringing in the latest trends, latest evolutions from outside the organization, or even within the organization as well, from across business units, right? And bring those best practices back into the system to help them continuously evolve and experience that journey better, right? That is something I probably can add on in terms of sustenance. We'll go to the last question, and this is something, right, we all want to look at. What are the anti patterns? And Akhil probably touched upon at the beginning, but we'll go to at the last to Akhil so that he can add on to whatever we all look at. So probably Amit, you've been silent for a while now. So what anti patterns do you see in teams you work with?
Okay. See, what I have seen, Nivriti, it's a very good question. The entry patterns mainly on the transformation journey, when they have transformed to a level, how they can really sustain to that level. They usually transform to whether it's an agile transformation or cultural transformation or a DevOps, which takes the engines going forward. But what the anti-pattern which we have seen is they try to fall back always to the previous ways of working. And how we can have a invisible, I usually call it as invisible coaches. We don't have to be always be engaged with the team, but how they can take it this journey towards the aspect which is client focus, human centric focus. These are the things which we have to take. The anti pattern which we have observed is not falling back again and again to their the traditional ways of working collaboratively. That is the one entry pattern. The second aspect which is there is the culture. When we talk about the culture or the leadership, what I have observed is leadership all will take it. Yeah, we are fine with this approach. We are taking it, but again, they will be having a constant engagement with the leadership to understand, to make them understand this is the new way of working. It is the ownership which they have built into the team. Now, if you really want to ask a status or the aspect, go back to all the members of the team. Not only previously there was only one project manager. They used to always say, okay, what is the status? So there was always a manager who was used to give the status. Now it is the team collaboration, it is the ownership which has been built into the team, and that is the engagement with the leadership, a continuous engagement where we can make the cultural transformation really work.
Okay, great. Who likes to add, Aditya or Hari? Because I'll keep Akhil for the last.
I just have to add one point. Don't create continuous delivery pipelines and then create a checklist for it and a requisition form which needs to be filled and approval gained so that a DevOps engineer can go and click and run the CD pipeline. Huh?
Oh, okay. Thanks for that. That was a great anti-pattern you talked about. Hari, anything you want to add as a closing comment?
No, I wanted to. We have different strategies for different parts of the organization. There are, for DevOps transformation or even Agile transformation, you have legacy, you have native cloud, and you have, you need to have different strategy for, and something which is in between, where it is in the transition process to something more faster. So we need to have different strategy for different areas of the organization for the transformation. Not everything. You cannot compare apples and oranges. You cannot do the same strategy, that one strategy that fits everyone. And even that is different for different areas or different teams or different countries. You need to understand, and we need to be more inclusive. Many a times, I become an inclusive trainer along with my HR as part of this transformation journey, because that was needed for me to develop my own skills to be training people to be removing their biases. Because that I see as an independent, because essentially it is boiled down to people having their biases from the culture, the way that they're actually coming from, and removing them will solve half of the problems. In making the collaboration to work. So essentially, you become a facilitator coach who are actually holding the space for them to remove these biases. Knowingly and unknowingly, that happens with the individuals who's holding the power and authority. And that's I would say is the major anti-pattern that I see. And of course, we all live with limited resources, limited money, limited everything. So we need to be really practical about what is that we are going to be doing in this phase of transformation. So you need to take it in phases. Don't try to do the entire world we cannot transform. Change in small steps, and then show that success and share that, and create the space for people to share that, and then that will sustain. Otherwise, it's going to fall down. And build the base. Always focus on teams to make sure that on the ground level things are working. That's only we can build on the base a good foundation.
Okay, great. Akhil, last but not the least, your closing comments.
Yeah, so I, in the last few years, engaging with a number of organizations from the outside, when we go to help and work with as a consulting, the first thing was that we have a DevOps team. That's called a DevOps silos. That's an absolute anti-pattern, right? Your definition is that reducing the silos, creating the flow of delivery, but you have a DevOps team. So that's a major anti-pattern is what I see that. And then there is what we can do differently is depending upon the context of the organization's challenges and the conditions that we have, you can start adopting a different kind of organizational model for the DevOps transformations to happen, right? And that's, you can find out the team topologies, which has been talked about. But I found that where you can create the collaborations and where you can maximize the value creations, right? And then we So that's the number one. Second one is, this is anti-pattern, and right now I'm experiencing it. Tools in a toolbox. Tools in a toolbox. So we have all the tools. Tell me whatever that you want. We have like 110 tools, and we can do all of that, right? So we have to start looking at the delivering architecture, not the tools. Tools are not going to create a delivery for you. We are creating a product architecture, but we have forgotten to create the delivery architecture. That has to be aligned. It's not the tools in a toolbox. And the third one is, why are you doing DevOps? And I'm talking about the right now, which is happening with me in one of the organizations. Everybody is doing in my industry, therefore I am also doing it. Yeah, it's like, what? I'm doing it because everybody dancing, therefore I am also dancing, right? So everybody is doing syndrome is very, very big anti-pattern. And that is where I talked about, okay, so what is that you want to do? So in 1 year time, we should start creating this flow. You should not have this. We should automate it, cloud, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what will happen? They do not have the last one. The fourth one I talk about is that long-term directions definition. What is it the long-term that organization wants to do 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line? When you have this particular business agility built in, what is that end result that organization is looking for? What is that outcome that we are looking for? Right? And they do not have the long-term direction definition. I take it all the time that any organizations that we need to have long-term direction definitions. And there are many, but these are the 4 things that I would like to put together for us to consider.
And also Sapphire is mentioning, interesting things here. Over designing the operational level or empowering gatekeepers who lack flexibility, right, can topple all the positive activities and structures that have taken time to develop. And I think that is one of the elements that Aditya was also mentioning more in a comical sense as well. So great points again. Thank you all for joining. Before we close, I think there are few things that I would like to talk about. One, we are launching a book club, book readers club rather, and the first book review is happening tomorrow, and that will be the book that we are looking to review along with Akhil is the pause principle. Step back to lead forward. I think that's the tagline of that book, and it would be great if you want to join us. I'm putting the link for the registration in the chat right now, so you can all go ahead and try and register through this link and can join us tomorrow, and we can interact there as well. So what we have tried to create is a book club which we have named as the Seekers. So if we just look at the logo that we are trying to create for that. So if you are keen to present any book review, please get in touch with me, and we can always enable you and provide that platform. If you want to join us, you can register on the chat, and we will always be grateful to have you on the show with us. And apart from that, I think next week we have 2 live sessions happening, which will be published soon. The first one will be with Rajat Tiwari, who has published a new book on cultural or organization culture. And then on Thursday, we will have a live session with our ESM community, that is the Expert Scrum Master community. And there we are looking to talk about the 2 wheels of the bicycle, Agile and DevOps, how they need to synchronously run together and share our experience, from that point of view, to see how we can integrate possibly the Agile and DevOps transformations. So that will happen on next Thursday. So wonderful to have you all, Manal. Thanks for that appreciation. I'm glad you liked the discussion that we have, and we also had Sandeep, Chandru, Balwinder, and as well as Sapphire, and also Dr. Srinagesh, who expressed their participation in the live show as well. All others who could not comment, thank you all for joining and making it a wonderful session. And thank you all panelists. And I look forward to having you all again soon on probably a different topic. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night, great
Right.
evening,
Thank you.
great
Thank you.